Hi, welcome to the 13th Annual Cactus and Succulent Society Show and Sale. It's nice to see you all. I'm glad you could make it today. My name's Lawrence Magner and I'm one of the officers of the club. I want to tell you a little bit about this plant and then I'll tell you a little bit about the club and the show. This plant is a native New England cactus. This grows wild in Massachusetts. It's an Apuntia cespitosa, and it's one of two that grow in this state. Now, not many people realize we have wild cacti in this state, but we certainly do. They like sandy places to grow, so you can find them in the Outer Cape. A couple of them have been found along the beaches up in New Hampshire and even southern Maine. This plant puts out beautiful yellow flowers every June, and it's protected in this state. And it's just one of over 400 plants that we have at the show today for you to enjoy, for the people to enjoy. The Cactus and Succulent Society is, we're in our 28th year now, and we have over 100 members. We meet here at the Norfolk Public Library the third Saturday of every month. And we usually have a speaker. We have a minute clinic, so if you have plants with who are sick or you don't know anything or even what the plant is or is it alive or dead, we have experts who will answer these things, so you learn a lot. We have a raffle where people can get beautiful plants for 33 cents. And we have an auction where they can get exceptional plants for as little as $5. Plants that would be selling for $60, $70 someplace else. It's a big club, it's a lot of fun, and would love to see you come and join and enjoy the society.
Hi, I'm Jean Butler. I'm a member of the Cactus and Succulent Society. Have been for about 14 years. One of my particular areas of interest are agaves. However, unlike most agave fans, I don't have big windowsills, so I can't take a big plant. And yet, most of the agaves you see, especially in the books, are big agaves. They run 3 feet across, 6 feet across. The classic image is an agave americana that runs at least 6 feet across. Not going to happen in my house. So I particularly favor the compact agaves, and there are agaves that don't get that big. This one is an agave polyanthiflora, which I've probably owned for 5 years, maybe a little bit more. And I think I've only potted it up once from a smaller pot to this. I'm very happy it doesn't grow fast. I'm very happy it stays small because it fits on my windowsills, and it's very sweet, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. So this is just one. Most agaves are larger, but there are small ones. This is another one called Agave Wingula. Its nickname is creme brulee. And I don't know if you can see it, but in the summer sun, it has taken a little bit of a lilac blush along the corners along the edges of the plant, giving it more definition and more depth. So it went from being cream and green to cream and green and lilac, and I absolutely love that. This one is putting out a pup, what we call little offsets, which says that it's reached a certain maturity. It's probably still going to grow, but it's now mature enough to be able to support an offset.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Passavant, and I have been a member of the Cactus and Succulent Society of Massachusetts for probably 20 years at least, maybe 25. And I've tried growing a lot of different plants that you will see in the room from other people that have been talking to you. Right here, what I have are some Gasterias, and I want to show you a few of the different forms that are particularly interesting. A lot are interesting because they have different colors, they have different leaves, different shapes. So I'll just show you this one here. This is a Haworthia amelii, and I can show you here the nice leaves that come out. And this one is more a green form. You will see colors here like this red one. This one is particularly interesting because normally it has a single head, but this one has pupped, and it's probably been out in the sun all summer, which means that, or has brought out the red color, the deep red color, and I love it for the lighter color around the edges. It just looks, I think, just beautiful. And then you have this one here, another type of Haworthia. And again, you have a lot of different color, and you can see the different forms of these two plants. They're very, very different, and it makes it very interesting. And I'll show you this one here, another Haworthia. Again, it's very, very different if you look at the three together.
Hi, I'm Francis, and I'm at the cactus table at the Cactus and Succulent show, which our club puts on every year. And I'd just like to point out a few of the interesting forms that these cacti take. This one, for example, is a mammillaria. I don't know the exact species that it is, but what's interesting about this one is that it has 4 heads. It started out as one plant, and then it's split into 4. And it's been a reliable flower. It flowers every year with small, pale green flowers. Welcome sign at the end of winter, when it starts to produce flowers. We have another plant here which I find very interesting. This is actually my wife's plant. It's a Capiopoa, and it's native to the Atacama Desert, which, as you know, is a desert high up in the Andes, in Peru and Chile. And this plant sometimes will go for years without getting any water. We take better care of it than that. It gets watered at least monthly. During the growing season, because you don't want to water cacti in the winter. Very rarely, very little, because otherwise they will rot. They can't handle the water in the winter. Okay, so when the temperature drops down below 50, we gradually quit watering them. And we have to keep them warm in the winter, at least above freezing temperature. We try to keep them in the low 50s, high 40s. I find this plant also to be quite attractive. The color, you can see the color is kind of a purplish brown. But this is native to Brazil, to Bahia. Bahia is one of the provinces along the coast of Brazil on the eastern side of the continent. And it is an unusual feature for a cacti is that it will accept a lot of water. It doesn't mind rain on it. And it has, unfortunately, it has become rare in its natural habitat. We are plagued by people who collect plants illegally. And that's very unfortunate. This plant, called Echinocactus platycanthus, it looks small here and it's in a small pot, but actually this will grow to be a very large plant, and it's got vicious barbs on it. But it's a very attractive plant. Another plant that's, oops, I gotta get my arm out of here. This is called Parodioscopa, that's the scientific name. Colloquially it's known as the silver ball. And it's interesting in the sense that it doesn't grow just one head, it just multiplies and keeps adding and adding and adding little plants. It's also quite attractive when it flowers. So this is a mounding type of cactus. Some cacti grow singly, and then some cacti mound like that.
Yeah, my name is Pierre Bennerup. I'm from Connecticut. We have a display here of a variety of cactus and succulent plants. In front of, or in back of me here to my right is a very large planter with about, must be 15 different kinds of succulents there. And it's heavy. We have small plants and large plants here. What I'd like to talk about is maintaining cactus and succulent plants. A cactus is a Native American plant, meaning the Western Hemisphere. There are other succulents from other parts of the world, but they're not true cactus. All of them grow in what I would describe as desert conditions, arid, sandy, gravelly soil without a lot of organic material. They don't like water. The easiest way to kill them is to overwater them. So if you have a planter, make sure that you don't put too much water on them and that the mix is very, very loose, very, very well drained. In the wintertime, once every 6 weeks is more than enough, and the old trick is 1 ice cube per plant. That's the way of measuring it. In the summer, you'll have to do it a little bit more often. If you have them outside, be careful, because if you have a summer like this, where there's rain almost every day, your plants are going to rot away. They don't like that. Where they come from, in various deserts around the world, they may get less than 10 inches of rain in an entire year. And it may fall all within a 2-month period. So, just watch the water. They don't need a lot of fertilizer. If you want to fertilize, do it only once a year. And use a very light mixture of a soluble mix, such as Miracle Grow. And I'm not selling Miracle Grow. There are other equivalents. But use a very light mix. You can kill them by over fertilizing as well as over watering.
This is another area of the succulent world, Sansevierias. Many of them are from South, if not all, are from South Africa and Madagascar. And most of us, when we think, if we know what a Sansevieria is, we think of those tall, spiky plants. They're called snake plant or mother-in-law tongue, which is a mother-in-law I personally resent. But they are called snake plants, and you see them in dark pizza parlors, and there's like 40 spikes crammed into a tiny pot. They have a reputation of being, they don't need light. Well, they do need light. They can get by with less than most plants. But what's really interesting about them is when you give them light, some beautiful things happen. And not all plants are just tall, spiky plants. Let me show you this one. This one's very popular right now in the succulent world. This is a young version of it, but I think you might be able to see that the leaves are beginning to twist a little as they grow. So this plant is known in the trade. It's a Sansevieria trifasciata, which is its Latin name, and its cultivar name is sometimes called twister, and sometimes called twisted sister. And the combination of the twisted form, the lovely coloring, it's an attractive looking plant, and it's got a cool name. This plant is very popular in the trade right now, in collecting. This one here is called Whitneyi. It is more upright, but it has these lovely borders. It's all green down the middle, and then it has this lovely Sansevieria pattern only on the margins, which is a little different and kind of cool. This one is called Moonshine, because the more light you give it, the paler the leaves grow. So they become almost ghost-like, which is actually very pretty, especially at night. And there are many other ones. This is a small one called Fernwood. And that's about, it may get bigger, but I don't think by much. This is my plant, and this is as big as I've grown it so far. But it already put out another plant, and that smaller one has put out another plant. So they mature pretty quickly, and they stay sizable. They stay appropriate for a regular household. And then this one, and we have a couple of them here. This is called Sansevieria pinguicola, and it's also nicknamed the walking Sansevieria because of its manner of propagation. You can hopefully see that there's a little branch coming right out here. This plant just a month and a half ago was sitting in a smaller pot. Just these two parts of it were in a smaller pot. It's my plant. And all of a sudden one day I noticed it had thrown out this branch which is hanging out over the edge of the pot, and this little guy appeared at the end, and he's looking for somewhere to put down his roots, and there were just two little root nubs on the bottom. I don't know if you can see, there's a roots going down in there. And I thought, great, I'll pot it up for the show, but I'll leave him hanging off the edge so people can see that this is how this plant propagates itself. Well, by a month later, those little root nubs were already hitting the shelf. They were going so far, so fast in order to find nourishment and to establish themselves as a new plant. I finally said, well, I can't wait any longer. I have to put it in a bigger pot. So I just managed to find one that all three of them would fit in. I put its roots down, and now it's colonizing its little space in this pot. And sooner or later, it will throw another one out, and sooner or later, I'm going to have to divide this up or put it in a really big pot. But it's a very interesting plant, and before maybe in a moment, we can just step over and see a bigger example of this plant. Now I just want to show you a larger version of the Sansevieria pinguicola, the walking Sansevieria, which I just showed you. That one is much younger. This one is older, and obviously the plants are bigger and more established. But it was the same problem for potting this one up. Look at this. When I turn it around, you can see this plant here was an offshoot from this plant and has put down big roots right there. And the owner of this plant, I believe it's Art Scarpa, actually decorated it with these rocks to make it more like an in-habitat little setting. But that's what happens with these, and you can just keep going along. Art has or had one set of these where there were three right in a row. So he potted each one in a separate pot, but he left the branches connected. And it was interesting watching him move those three pots at one time because they all had to go together. So anyway, beautiful example of a pinguicola. Yeah. Now this grouping, it looks kind of small, which belies the fact that there are a great many plants that are available to growers. These are called Kalanchoes. They are also native to Africa and Madagascar. And they come in many different forms. This one, for instance, is showing how this plant makes new babies on its leaves. And there are some varieties that actually the whole plant, the whole leaf surface is lined with plantlets that will fall off and root and make new ones. This one is very familiar in the Southwest. It's called a Kalanchoe There are two varieties that are basically indistinguishable, Lucier and Tersiflora. And they often get a beautiful orange glow when they're in bright sunlight, direct sun. This one is mine, and I just fell in love with it because it has this lovely new leaves come out with a velvety, a plush, velvety copper brown, copper orange surface. And in fact, the name of this plant is Kalanchoe orgialis, but its trade name is copper spoons for obvious reasons. I was concerned that no matter how much I kept growing this plant, it wouldn't branch out. I wasn't sure if I should chop off the top, and I finally consulted a plant dealer who was familiar with these, and he said, no, they tend to like to grow into shrubs. He said, I would just let it go and see what happens. And I kind of wanted to show this plant for that very reason, because so much of what we do in growing these plants, which are from unfamiliar places and unfamiliar climates, and we take them and put them in an unnatural environment for them, and we're not even sure how they're supposed to look. So a lot of what we do is experimenting with the plants and seeing what happens. We try to read the signals they're giving us, and we try and give them appropriate care based on those signals. If they're dropping leaves and browning up, we figure they need more water or more humidity. If they start stretching as if they're reaching for the light, we figure they need to go closer to the sun. And if they start burning a little bit, then we figure they need less sun, maybe more light, less sun, less direct light, but high, bright, indirect light. That's really what growing these plants is all about. It's kind of an adventure. It's kind of like being an explorer or a scientist. You just watch your plant, you try to read the signals, and you wait and see what happens next.
My name is Patricia Slowacek, and I've been a member for about 2.5 years now. And I came in knowing absolutely nothing, and I know a bit more now. Not much, but a bit more. But I find it very fun and enjoyable. It's a good group of people. We have fun at the meetings. There's no commitment to have to, host a gathering or anything like that, like garden clubs are. And I find we have our meetings the third Saturday of every month at the Norfolk Library, which is great for me because I only live about 3 minutes away. And it's we have a good time. We talk about all the plants and what different ones are and different varieties. I found that after I came to the first meeting, I went home with like 4 different plants. So they kind of catch you, because then you have 4 plants that you need to know how to grow. So you have to come back and find out how to grow them. So yeah, it's just a fun group.